All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. We've got Andrew Evans today talking about React Suspense and React Freeze. I have not dug in enough with React Suspense, so I'm really excited about this. And yeah, we're going to send the recording after. If you have any questions, Andrew will hang out after, and if it makes sense, I'll pause him to answer it. So yeah, let's get going. This meetup is brought to you by LogRocket. LogRocket's a front-end application monitoring solution for React, React Native, any kind of other web or mobile application website. And basically, we're really hyper-focused on the client, and we're actually going to see within the app that Andrew built to demonstrate React Freeze and React Suspense. Basically, what we're tracking is a lot of the front-end performance metrics mixed with all the UX and UI interactions that a person has in your applications. We reconstruct that on a one-off basis, and then in aggregate as well. So you can do a lot of really great mixing performance monitoring, goals around shipping really good user experiences all in one place, and then we integrate with all your backend kind of logging tools and exception tracking tools. So with that, I'll shut up and I'll show you a little bit more LogRocket later, but Andrew, you can take it away.
All right, cool. Thank you. Let me go share my screen. All right, stop. Okay, you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, thank you for introducing me. So I'm Andrew Evans. Today, I'm basically going to be walking through these two projects to talk about React Suspense versus React Freeze. And then, there's also, obviously, this is following a post that I wrote that kind of covers, a lot of the same topics. I am going to essentially introduce myself, introduce the concepts. Then we're going to talk about React Suspense, React Freeze, some of the similarities, and then I'm actually going to show them to you in action, and then I'll talk about like some trade-offs between the two. So a little bit about me. I'm a front-end developer at AWS. I have 10 years of industry experience, and I've done full stack, but primarily front-end now, which kind of is why I'm doing these kind of things. And these are some fun pictures of me and my wife and kind of where we live. And also as a hobby, I do woodworking. So this is like my little stand at our local farmer's market. So good stuff. All right, so React Suspense. So if you're familiar with React in general, or you've been following React, React Suspense originally came out as an experimental feature like a couple of incremental releases ago. And I believe the newest release of React, it actually is already baked in, and you can essentially use it with like some data fetching libraries, and there's a couple of it's basically built in now, but it's still, I think, kind of getting formalized. But the general concept is essentially that you can specify loading state with your code. So they kind of give you like a hook to be able to do kind of what you see here in this code, where you wrap your component with like a fallback, and basically as your component is loading, it provides kind of like a loading state, and then when you're finished, it'll actually render the component. And behind the scenes, you basically have this kind of suspender concept that they have, and this is all in the sample project, but basically it just wraps your fetch call. And then, based on what's happening with the fetch call, it's going to either, give you like a pending status, or it'll actually give you the content. There's lots of ways to do this, like without React Suspense. Like most people have stuff where you'll listen for events, or if you use like a library like Redux or something like that, you can kind of have like event-driven kind of stuff. But this is cool because it's actually built into React. And like I said, with prior releases, I think there was like a flag you had to turn on. There's like several different, stages that I guess this kind of went through. And so if you click on, I'm going to share these links at the end, but on their blog site, they talk about like the features and kind of go into a little bit more. And then there's like an official Suspense like doc that they have as well. So I lost my window there. There we go. All right. So that's Suspense. React Freeze is kind of like, it's an NPM package that essentially does the same thing, or does kind of the same thing. The difference is that React Freeze was actually targeted originally toward React Native. And the idea was that you would essentially lock rendering. And rendering becomes important with performance, and it also becomes important when doing the same kind of thing where you're trying to control that loading state. What's cool about freeze is that you basically just pass like a Boolean parameter into the freeze component, and then you can actually stop it from rendering completely. So that means that you can block rendering and basically control what the user is actually seeing in their session. And I'm going to show the React profiler when I do the live example, and you'll kind of see this in action. But this was essentially kind of like a different way to do it. And it also was a little bit more targeted for the React Native community, but you can do it with regular React apps as well. And they're, they have some really nice like kind of docs in their GitHub repo. And there's like a little guide here, shows you like how to do it. There's a quick start, but it's pretty cool and pretty easy to kind of follow along. So as I said, they're both kind of the same thing, except for the fact that like Suspense is built into React, Freeze is not. And if you look under the covers, so if you actually go into the source code of React Freeze, you see that their suspender element is basically the same thing as what you do with React Suspense. So the nice part is that, as I said, it's basically just another way to control this loading state. But the cool part with Freeze that I was really impressed with is that like you basically can control what's actually rendering. So again, that's kind of a performance thing, and it will help to boost, the experience of your users, because you're truly controlling what is happening in their browser session. And all this will make probably a little more sense when I do the live code. The question a lot of people ask is like, is one of these better than the other? And I would say that both of them are good. I would say that obviously Suspense, if it's built in, is kind of cool. A lot of like React Remix, which is very popular now, as well as like Next.js. They have features that support Suspense. There's a lot of talk about like some future stuff that React is doing, where they're even going further with I think the use event hook is coming up, stuff like that. That's basically kind of where that is. If you just want to have like a purely, I want to use this feature, I want to install and uninstall and all that kind of stuff, I think Freeze is a really good way to go, because you can just add it to your project, you run it, and then it gives you very granular control, which is nice. So I think both of them are pretty powerful, and I think this is kind of where the future of web development really is kind of heading, because everybody's using APIs. There's a lot of stuff that is kind of we build every day as front-end developers to handle situations like this, and the fact that like some of these like native libraries or frameworks support them makes it a lot easier for just developers and the end user obviously as well. So with that, let me show you my code. So if you looked at my post and you've looked at like these sample apps, basically, I'll look at the Suspense project first. So this one was essentially copied from React's, Suspense site, and there's like a quick start that kind of is associated with the first iteration of Suspense. But basically, it's just like you would any other React project. You've essentially got your little functional component here. You've got the Suspense object wrapping, and so these are essentially what you would call fallbacks. So you're showing the component, and then the fallback is what gets showed while it's waiting for that event to happen. In the case of basically what's happening behind the scenes, again, like I said, all of these things are being wrapped in a little promise, and it's listening for the event. When you come over to the React Freeze project, you see kind of the same situation, and you've got like a situation with where is it? Here it is. So we have freeze, and it's you're using a Boolean value to pass, but under the covers, it's really doing the same thing. And I'll show you this with the Chrome profile. So if we go over here and we start with there it is. If we start with oh boy, I don't know why my keyboard is having a good time today. All right, React freeze sample. All right. let's look at React Freeze first. So if you know, this is like super simple, just pulling back some information about the Beatles. If you look at how it's actually running, if you look with the, sorry, my browser is bouncing around here. If you look at the Chrome profiler, and then like say we want to go ahead and start profiling, and then let it finish and then stop. If you look at the flame graph, what is happening is essentially the page loads. So this is the wrapper. Then you have like a freeze component, which that's all that is being rendered. Then when you see it's got the suspender, which is what is running under the covers of React Freeze. And when the data comes back, then it's unfreezing the component and then showing essentially the fallback, right? So ultimately you end up with, what is your timeline. But this tool is kind of cool because you can see like at this phase, the orange is basically what's being rendered, and then the green is, if I can get there, what actually eventually gets rendered. So it just basically shows you kind of like a logical progression through this. So now if we switch back over to React Suspense, you'll see basically the same thing. And if I do the reload here, and then if we stop and look at the graph, you see that it's basically doing the same thing, except for instead of having the library to wrap it, we've got the suspender right here. So we have suspense, and then profile timeline is right there. So yeah. So a couple notes about this. So basically, this is kind of cool stuff to work with. It's nice that you're not having to kind of build things where you have like conditionals checking for these states. It's all, under the covers, doing a lot of this work for you. The other thing is that if you go into kind of like the present state of React and where we're going in the future, I think this is kind of a greater vision that the React team has for, allowing you to have more event-driven work, I guess. And so this is it. I definitely think we'll see more of this. I personally, out of the two, I liked Freeze a little bit better just because of the fact that Freeze is, it's just a package that you install. Suspense, you had to do a little bit of work behind the scenes to create like the suspense element and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of it. I mean, this wasn't really like a super intense post. I mean, I basically just kind of showed where the technology was going. And then in the links here, if you go to where is it? This one. I think this is, that's Suspense. Oh, shoot. Oh, no. Keyboard is acting up again. All right, Suspense. There we go. All right. If you look at their original page, no, this is LogRocket. Where did okay, I apologize. I thought I had a link, and apparently I don't. So never mind. But there is I can follow back up with, is it right here? Yes, here it is. Okay. So I'm sorry about that. Oh, great. There we go. So this was the original page that when React Suspense came out in the experimental phase, they had talked about, and it's got links to a couple different announcements, but this basically kind of shows you what it is, walks you through essentially the same project that I was just talking about, and they have like a code sandbox as well. But anyway, I'm gonna share this at the end. But that was kind of it. So definitely want to open it for questions and see what you guys want to talk about.
Yeah, Edgar said, thanks, Andrew, first. He said, are both available for React.js and React Native? So I guess what's the current state of Suspense in React Native?
Yeah, so if you look, React Suspense, React Freeze is definitely available for React Native. I believe React Suspense you can put into React Native, but I don't really do a lot of work with, I guess, kind of the native space. So I actually don't know a lot about that. But I don't think this page probably has anything on it. No, it does. Oh, it does. Or no, it doesn't. Not great. Okay. All right. But if you look in the React Freeze docs, at least they've got this thing where, you know, this is basically enabling the freeze element with the React Native project. And it kind of, if you go into some of the, I think it's down here, all right, I can't find what I'm looking for, but basically the person that created this, and one of the things that I read was that the motivation behind React Freeze was actually using it for React Native. So they were trying to create, I think with React Native, the way that a page loads, it's as you walk through like routes, they're basically, it's like a stack kind of situation. And what React Freeze is letting you do is control different pages on that stack, I guess. So it gives you more granular control again about with the performance. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And then, yeah, I guess like what's the biggest difference than just like general conditional rendering? Like just if Boolean true, return null or return component, like.
Yeah. So the difference is that like with Suspense, you know, it's basically like written like I guess with just React. Like, so a lot of times, you know, with projects, you get a lot of attention about bundle size. You know, a lot of people worry about having to pass off between, you know, different libraries and stuff like that. With Suspense, it's built in. So like you see right here, we have like the Suspense component. The Suspense component is pulled in directly from React. And then we have the profile details, which I believe is not here, fetch profile data. So this is like kind of like basically a set of different promises that are wrapped to create the behavior, but that's all fed back to index. So basically what happens here is that you're using this thing that came directly from React, where versus with React Freeze, you're actually adding that to your project. Again, this is kind of hard. Like, honestly, my experience was just that Suspense is really cool, but because it was experimental, and then now there's different ways to do it. And there's also, like, if you use like Next or Remix, they've got things that work with it. You know, my kind of like if I was going to do this for a project, I probably honestly would probably just use React Freeze, or I would use one of those other frameworks that uses this under the covers, just because it's easier to get up and running. But that's probably the biggest thing, is that if you use Suspense by itself, you're going to have to do some of that manual work to get it, you know, piped together and working. Versus if you use React Freeze, it's all basically just one package. You enable it, you know, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And then do you know if like React Suspense changed significantly over the time it was in experimental to now? I know it was there for a while, right?
Yeah, I think it was basically, there was a flag, like you would have to do like an install with like beta, I think was what was that. It's like you'd have to do like a oh great, this is the wrong link. Maybe here it is. Yeah. So you would have to do this thing where like after you did like your create React app or whatever else, you would have to install it with a beta flag, which is not in this post. Great. Okay, I apologize again. It's there. if you Google this, you'll find it. But anyway, the point is that there was like a way you had to do it. Now with React 18, if you look at Suspense, they specifically tell you, or my computer will not work. There it is. Oh, great. Okay. I don't know why my keyboard it's just like straight not working today. All right, there we go. Okay.
Choosing the best time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always the best here. All right, so there we go. So the you can load data incrementally with Suspense. So this shows you. Okay, this is really not. I really apologize. I thought I had this link. When I put this together this morning, that I had shortcuts to these things. Anyway, the point is that like with the React 18, it one of the things that they say is that it's supported by like Remix. Next has a thing, and then if you actually go to like Next website, yes, okay, and then if you look at their I just try to type my keyboard here. All right, there we go. Okay, I'm just gonna stop using my keyboard. All right, so here it is. So you see like right here, you can use Suspense. They allow you for like streaming and these kind of things. And all of this is basically doing it like under the covers. So like they've got like dynamic and they're working hand in hand. So they've got their docs show you like ways to do it. And that's why I was saying like I would, if I was gonna do it, you know, I would probably go with this route and just use what they're doing versus having to manually pipe this stuff together yourself. Just because it wasn't super clear for the exact reasons that we're talking about. Like it's hard to find the docs. A lot of the stuff was essentially a flag the first time around. Now it's there, but it's just not. I think they're doing. I know the React team is doing a lot of stuff now with concurrent rendering and or like incremental rendering, I guess. Like especially with like the server side component stuff that they've been working on. And so like you know, I think that in the future this is probably going to be easier to understand. But if you rely on somebody like Next is great because they, you know, are pretty regularly updated. They have a lot of like really great documentation showing you how to do stuff. I would, you know, definitely do this or Remix as well.
Yeah. They figure it out for you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, make your life a little bit easier so you know you can focus on trying to actually build something versus you know, understanding how to install a package.
So. Yeah. And Raphael said, it looks at first that suspend doesn't prevent the component unmount. Meanwhile, freeze prevents it to be reused later.
Yeah, that's right. That's okay. Yeah, I believe that's what I understood from the documentation. And again, that was kind of like this whole thing with React Native being on a stack, because like I think what they were saying was like, you know, if you have, you know, like stack of pancakes and you want to stop one of the pancakes from actually doing it, it actually just like completely stops it from rendering. And I didn't really do a very good job of explaining the flame graph because honestly I have a hard time with the React profiler just in general. But like what I could tell, and in my post I actually like I had a screenshot, which was what I was trying to do, but there it is. What this shows you is that essentially these things aren't rendered until the suspender allows you to do that. And you see like right here, if you and the flame graph, if you like highlight this, then the text on the screen is highlighted, I guess. But this is just showing you that component is not really existent in the stack until the freeze allows, you know, or the flag becomes true. And then it's like kind of lazy loaded almost, I guess, if that makes sense.
And then yeah, like this is like a lot of use of this stuff is we're rendering tons of stuff, not rendering things you don't need to. Yeah. So you kind of added the Web Vitals kind of reporting into the app. Like, how does that fit into everything?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the cool part, I guess, about this. I'm working on a project right now, actually, that we had to do like a debounce kind of situation because we were loading too much. And this kind of a tool would be really nice to have in those cases, because you wouldn't even have to worry about necessarily like debounce, meaning that you just delay rendering or wait until, you know, activities are done. This gives you like almost like pure fine-grained control over what you're actually showing, and then it prevents you know, overloading the browser with like,
yep.
and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's a good segue. So yeah, if you look at the repo, there's like the core Web Vitals kind of logging set up. I did just want to like show the real, like what we're really trying to prevent from the end user's perspective. So I got the app here. I set up LogRocket, and you can see, just like we just saw, loading it up, refreshing, putting some logging in there. But what's really nice is like this stuff stays really low. So what we're looking at here is a replay of the session, obviously, and then you can go check out like when CPU usage and memory usage was spiking. So like this is, you know, using freeze and suspense is like trying to keep that as low as possible. And my overloaded computer anyways is probably a good sign of that rather than this app actually doing anything. Yeah, I figured I'd check that out. And then like, I just immediately went to like some of our metrics products and metrics features, and you can start to say, use like a time between events kind of thing to go understand the performance of like whether you're conditionally rendering one piece over another, like with Suspense. So in the case of this thing, it's like loading profile to Ringo Starr. I would just say like visible with text. What was it?
This is so cool, man. Like I I love how you can just like dive into this, you know, with this tool versus what I was trying to do.
Yeah, like you know, a lot of like, since we're in like an SPA world, like actually understanding performance unless you like build like a serious like logging, like this I would just save and then be able to go say like, okay, if we're like using Suspense to render this Ringo Starr component, like how long is that taking generally? And like you can track over time and say like, okay, if I've got 17 components loading before that and we're using Suspense to only load this one, like did I actually go improve performance? But
yeah, this is even better than the Chrome profiler, because if you dive into the Chrome profiler, there's,
yeah,
you know, they give you like a million things to look at, and it's really nice that you can get that granular that easily with the tool.
Yeah, I have like the same trouble with the profiler. Just like clicking the same thing twice gives you two different like views of what you're looking at.
Yeah, yeah, I've had that problem. And then you're trying to like get like with the app we're working on, like there's a bunch of different like composed components, and so it's really hard to like see you know, like when a child component actually shown. So like, you know, navigating through all that stuff, I mean that took like half a day for me to figure out before I could figure out what I was looking at, you know. So yeah, but anyway, so yeah, but this is really cool stuff. I'm kind of excited about like both of these products or tools, because I think that in the future, you know, as we get more and more into like kind of like what Remix is doing with like server-side rendering and that kind of thing, I think these kind of things are going to become a lot more important as we get more into like performance management and stuff with apps in the future.
Yeah. We had one more question if you got a minute, which I'm curious. It's a tough one. So like under the hood with Suspense, how does it work between React that creates the tree of a component objects and then the React DOM that starts rendering them? So I guess like, yeah, how does it work between creating the tree and then rendering the tree? I think this is what they're saying.
Yeah, I think I saw something where I think it was called like muting the rendering or something like that. But I think it's basically interacting with the virtual DOM, and so you're getting into like where, you know, you're actually controlling updates on the tree. And so I think if you use the Suspense feature, I think it just basically, like, whereas React Freeze, you know, you can easily see like you pass that boolean in and then it's stopping stuff. I think React Suspense is doing the same thing, but it's doing it directly with the virtual DOM versus having to, you know, tell your app not to do it, which I think is kind of, you know, they're two different kind of methods of the same kind of thing. But again, like that was kind of like why React Suspense is nice, because you don't have to have that external library to do it. It's just harder to understand. So,
okay. Well, thanks a ton. Yeah, I'm going to send this recording around. We'll get the links all together. Yeah, go play around with the repo. It's super easy to set up. And, yeah, we'll see you for the next one, Andrew. Thanks.
all right, cool. Thanks again.
Bye.